In our last exploration, we saw how Marcus Aurelius used the discipline of judgment to find freedom and resilience in the face of life's trials. But as any Stoic sage knows, true self-mastery is incomplete without the ability to engage skillfully with others. After all, we are social creatures, profoundly impacted by the personalities and perceptions that surround us. To navigate this interpersonal landscape with equanimity and grace is both the great challenge and the great opportunity of the philosophical life. How then does the practicing Stoic handle difficult people, heated disagreements, mismatched expectations? What practical wisdom can we glean from Marcus and his mentors in the art of human relations? At the core of the Stoic approach to interpersonal matters is a fundamental premise. We cannot control others, but we can control our reactions to them. As Marcus puts it, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, "The people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. And so none of them can hurt me." In other words, people will act according to their own inner state, which is often one of ignorance, fear, or pain. If we take their conduct personally, we only amplify our own suffering. But if we zoom out to see the bigger picture, we realize their behavior says more about them than it does about us. This doesn't mean we must passively accept mistreatment, but it does mean we can choose to respond with understanding rather than offense. We can, as Marcus advises, accuse yourself every time you feel your hackles rise at some perceived attack or insult. Should you really take it personally if someone stinks of yesterday's garlic or has bad breath? Same thing if they have a pungent soul. Of course, this is easier said than done. When someone pushes our buttons, the instinct is to push back, to defend, to retaliate, to prove our point. But as the Stoics teach, this only escalates the conflict and erodes our own peace of mind. The alternative is to cultivate what Marcus calls a mind invincible to pleasures, pains, and irritations. This is not a cold or callous indifference, but a clear-eyed acceptance of what we can and cannot control. It's the art of creating space between stimulus and reaction, anchored in the inner citadel of our judgments. So how do we begin cultivating the Stoic art of human relations in our daily lives? Here are a few practices to guide the way. First, the next time someone frustrates or offends you, pause before reacting. Take a few deep breaths. Then ask yourself, what impression am I forming about this person's motives or character? Is it based on fact or on assumption? Could there be a more charitable way to interpret the situation? Second, try the Stoic technique of projective visualization. Imagine stepping into the other person's shoes. What beliefs, fears, or past experiences might be shaping their behavior? How might you respond with empathy rather than judgment? Third, learn to set boundaries with kindness. If someone repeatedly oversteps or leaves you drained, speak up clearly and calmly. You might say, "I value our relationship, but I'm not comfortable with this behavior. Can we find a better way to interact?" Remember, you don't control their response, but you do control your own conduct. Next, keep what we might call a challenge journal. At the end of each day, choose one difficult interaction, describe it objectively, and then reframe it through a Stoic lens. What did it reveal about your own triggers? How might you respond differently next time? And finally, begin a short morning ritual of loving kindness. Spend a few minutes silently wishing well to others, starting with those you love, then those you're neutral about. and finally those who challenge you. You might say to yourself, "May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease." This practice can gradually soften your reflexes from resentment into goodwill. To be clear, this is not about being a doormat or enabling bad behavior. It's about retaining your equanimity and agency in the face of difficult dynamics. It's about responding instead of reacting, acting from principle rather than pride. As Marcus puts it, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Or as Epictetus, another great Stoic teacher, says, "Remember that it is we who torment, we who make difficulties for ourselves. That is, our opinions do." What, for instance, does it mean to be insulted? Stand by a rock and insult it? And what have you accomplished? The rock, of course, is our inner fortress, that unassailable core of our being that no external event can breach unless we allow it. When we remember this truth, we cease to be at the mercy of others' opinions or actions. We reclaim the power to choose our own thoughts, our own path. This is especially relevant in an age of online outrage and cancel culture. It's all too easy to get swept up in the latest controversy, to take personally every provocation or disagreement. But as the Stoics teach, this only breeds more anger, more division, more suffering. From this foundation of goodwill, we can engage others with both compassion and discernment. We can stand firm in our principles while remaining open to different perspectives. We can advocate for change without demonizing those who disagree. As Marcus advises, when someone does you wrong, ask yourself, what is his understanding of good and evil that caused this? Once you know that, you'll feel compassion rather than surprise or anger, for you might share his mistaken view or have considered it yourself. Or if not, you're still able to consider his action without resentment based on the reflection that no one who objects to your correction actually chooses to be wrong. In other words, assume ignorance before malice. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And remember that everyone is fighting their own battles, however invisible to us. This doesn't mean we'll always reach agreement or avoid conflict, but it does mean we can navigate disagreements with grace, humility, and a commitment to truth over tribalism. We can, as Marcus puts it, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. In practice, the Stoic art of human relations might look like this. You pause before responding to a provocative comment or accusation. Rather than firing back, you take a deep breath, count to 10, or excuse yourself to gather your thoughts. You try to see the situation from the other person's perspective. You ask yourself, what could be driving their behavior? What fear, pain, or misunderstanding might lie beneath their words? Can I respond with empathy rather than hostility? You set boundaries with clarity and kindness. When someone oversteps or disrespects you, you express your needs calmly, not with anger, but with resolve. You say what must be said without trying to change or control the other person. You shift focus from judging the other's character to refining your own conduct. You reflect, is my response guided by conscience and principle, or by resentment, ego, or fear? If your integrity is intact, then no real harm has been done. And you choose your battles. You recognize that not every slight requires a response, and not every disagreement needs to be won. Sometimes the wisest move is silence. Sometimes letting go is the greater strength. Remember, as with any skill, the Stoic art of human relations takes practice. There will be setbacks, relapses into old habits of mind. The key is to approach each interaction as a fresh opportunity to embody your principles, to choose virtue over vice. As Marcus reminds us, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? In other words, start with self-scrutiny. Polish your own mirror before pointing out the smudges on others. And trust that by working on yourself, you create ripple effects that shape the world around you. We began with Marcus in his study, tending the garden of his mind. Let us end with him in the forum, amid the bustle and brouhaha of human affairs. Here he is not cloistered in contemplation, but engaged in the messy business of governing, negotiating, mediating between competing interests. Yet he carries his inner citadel with him, a portable sanctuary of the soul. From this place of centeredness, he can meet others where they are, while still standing firm in his own convictions. He can disagree without being disagreeable, lead without lording over, speak truth to power without losing his own. This is the essence of the Stoic art of human relations, not a cold detachment from others, but a warm engagement based on shared humanity. It's a recognition that we are all flawed and fallible, yet worthy of respect and compassion. By cultivating this art, we become not only better philosophers, but better friends, partners, colleagues, citizens. We learn to meet the world on its own terms, while still hewing to our own. As Marcus puts it, constantly regard the universe as one living being, having one substance and one soul, and observe how all things have reference to one perception, the perception of this one living being, and how all things act with one movement, and how all things are the cooperating causes of all things which exist. In other words, we are all in this together, this grand, maddening, beautiful experiment called life. The more we can approach each other with empathy and equanimity, the more we weave a web of understanding that uplifts us all. So the next time you find yourself in the throes of interpersonal friction, remember, you have a choice. You can react with rancor or respond with reason. You can escalate the conflict or elevate the conversation. The Stoic path is not always easy, but it is always ennobling. It asks us to be our best selves, especially when others are not. It challenges us to find freedom not in changing the world, but in changing how we relate to it. In this way, we become the eye of the storm, the calm within the chaos. We tap into a power that transcends the petty, the tribal, the reactive. We may not control the tides of human events, but we can learn to navigate them with wisdom, grace, and an unwavering compassion. This, in the end, may be the greatest gift Stoicism has to offer, not just for ourselves, but for a world in sore need of healing.